Hopelessness is the enemy to happiness. But when we have hope, no matter the circumstances that we face, when we're surrounded by the hope that Jesus gives, we are victorious. As we look at John 16, Jesus is taking his disciples on a journey that leads them through the pathway of hope, so that even in the chaos that they will face, even in the difficult days that will surround them, they can have confidence in his love and in his grace and his power. Now, imagine the disciples. They've heard Jesus is going to die. He's preparing them for his death. He's given them a promise of a secure tomorrow and empowered today and constant help through the Holy Spirit. He's shared with them the key ingredient of abiding with him so that they might find nourishment and satisfaction for their everyday life. Now, at the end of chapter 15 and the beginning of chapter 16, Jesus tells them that it's going to be hard, that there are going to be difficult days, that there's going to be hostility that they face from the world. The Holy Spirit is going to be at work in their lives, and this is verses 7 through 11 of chapter 16. He's saying the Holy Spirit's going to be at work in the world, and he's going to convict the world of sin and of righteousness, of judgment. He's going to lead people who aren't followers of Christ to become followers of Christ, but it's still going to be a world marked by hostility. In the face of that hostility, where is our hope? And Jesus says that our hope is found because sorrow will be transformed into joy. In the midst of crippling chaos and confusion, we need hope. We need hope. And Jesus declared that there would be hope, even in the face of sorrows, because that sorrow would be transformed to joy. Look at verses 20 and 22 of chapter 16. Jesus said, "You will weep and lament. The world will rejoice. You will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will be turned into joy." Verse 22, "Therefore you now have sorrow, but I will see you again, and your heart will rejoice, and your joy no one will take from you." The sorrow, the pain, the difficulty, that was the cross. That was the death of Jesus. The sorrow of the cross would meet the everlasting joy of the empty tomb. The cross was a pathway and is a pathway to victory. We need to see our life from a new point of view. Yes, there are problems and yes, there are struggles that we're going to face today, but there's hope because the resurrection power transforms sorrow into joy. The power of the empty tomb is the power that God makes available to you and to me. So even in the face of our sorrow, let's look to the resurrection. Let's see the victory of God raising the dead. Maybe you're on the path and you can only see pain. You don't understand why God would stand around and let all this struggle and trouble happen. But Jesus begins to open our eyes toward the hope that he gives. Our pain has a purpose, just as his pain had a purpose. Our struggle will lead to one result when we follow Jesus faithfully, and that result is joy. We have hope because sorrow gives birth to joy. We have hope because we have help from God. The portion of joy that we experience after the death and resurrection of Jesus is intimate fellowship with God the Father, who helps us personally and powerfully. Look at verses 23 and 24. "In that day," Jesus said, "you will ask me nothing. Most assuredly, I say to you, whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give you. Until now, you've asked nothing in my name. Ask, you will receive, that your joy may be full." In that day, that's the day of Christ's resurrection and exaltation. It's the day in which he has gone to the Father and has sent his Holy Spirit to us. Through Jesus Christ, we have access to the Father intimately and personally, and God commits to help. He commits to help us so that when we are walking with Jesus and we cry out to him, he hears and he answers. Today, we need help. We need supernatural help. And when we're on this road with Jesus, the maker of heaven and earth, God will move with his limitless power and for his glory to help us. Ask for help today, and God will give it. Sorrow gives birth to joy, and we have help from God, but we also have peace that God provides. And Jesus wanted his disciples to understand that peace belonged to them because they belonged to him. We'll have troubles in the world, but the only way to find peace in this chaotic time and victory in our daily lives is to come to Christ, to come to him and find the strength and the peace that he provides. Look at verses 32 and 33. Jesus said, "Indeed, the hour is coming. Yes, it has now come, that you will be scattered, each to his own, and will leave me alone. And yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. These things I've spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you'll have troubles, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world." Jesus promises suffering, and he promises victory. The certainty of suffering is apparent for all of us who have open eyes today. But there is peace even in the face of suffering. We find peace when we follow Jesus on the road of hope. Friends, you and I will never find peace by avoiding God's mission for the church. Jesus Christ is the one who longs to give us peace, and peace even in the midst of suffering. As we submit to Christ, suffering will come. But Jesus himself becomes our peace, and that peace overcomes our suffering. And Jesus uses the opportunity of struggle to open our eyes to see the peace, the wholeness of life that we have in him. In the darkest of days, as we navigate the most difficult paths, even in the deepest disappointments, victory belongs to those who belong to Jesus and who walk with him. Today, there is hope for us. Sorrow will be transformed into joy. Help comes from God the Father, and we have certainty of peace even in suffering. Let's live in the hope that Jesus gives.